I want to start off this morning, before I get into my content, with a bit of an acknowledgement, a land acknowledgement. This is the Portland State University land acknowledgement, and I do want to apologize in advance if I mispronounce any of these tribes' names. But we honor the indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on. The Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala lands of the Chinook, the Tualatin, Kalapuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. It's important to acknowledge the ancestors of this place and to recognize we are here because of the sacrifices forced upon them. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants. So preparing for this talk was hard because security kind of sucks right now. Everything's not going well. Just this week, I got contacted about the Caesars breach because I have yet another 2 years of identity monitoring. I think at this point, my identity will be monitored long past my breathing. We've got Clorox announcing the financial impact of their bleach breach, and MGM talking about $100 million in losses. And it's not like we don't know where the attacks are coming from or how they're being carried out. Nobody wants to talk at a big conference about phishing. Phishing's been going on for years at the basic con. We all want to talk about the exciting new O-Day, the elaborate attack, the new way that I popped calc on Windows or something. And the reality is you don't need O-Day. And so security is kind of rough right now, and it's hard to be optimistic. And especially when all I want to do at this point is go raise baby goats off the grid and mutter about technology. So that's not what keynotes are supposed to be. Keynotes are supposed to be inspirational. We're supposed to be optimistic. We're supposed to get people pumped up for the day. We're going to learn about security. It's going to be great. So let's dig deep and find that inspiration in all the things we're doing wrong. And it's real easy for us to talk about, oh, if the developers would just, if the users would just. And I'm here today to talk about what security is doing wrong and how we need to change if we want to get different outcomes. So, first off, if security were just a technical problem, we would have fixed it by now. How long have we known about input sanitization? Like, we know how to prevent those vulnerabilities, but we keep releasing code that includes them. And that's because security is far more than a technical problem. People write code, human beings, and they're writing code to do a job. And a lot of developers will tell you they got into coding because they're inherently lazy. They didn't want to do a thing manually, and they wanted to automate it, and they wanted to automate it quickly, and that is not always conducive to high quality, robust code. They're getting a job done, and they're gold on getting a job done. And even if they are quality conscious, humans are notoriously bad at assessing risk. And after something bad has happened, their shields go up, and they're a little more conservative about things, and they're more aware of the risks presented to them. But after a while, they become complacent again. And so we keep applying technical solutions to human problems and glorifying those tools that we can apply and undermining or discounting the human factors. DevSecOps is popular because security teams aren't. Developers like the idea of DevSecOps. They love the idea of shift left. Let's stop throwing a bunch of resources at the security team. You're going to give me SAST tools and software component analysis tools, and I'm going to get all these tools. Great. And then I don't have to deal with the security team because they're always showing up telling me I can't do a thing, or that I did it wrong, or I have to go do this other thing that isn't what I'm goaled on that our customers are asking for. And so from an executive and engineering perspective, DevSecOps is great. The problem is we're throwing tools over the wall to developers who don't have security training. This idea that developers will do the right thing if they have the information, that assumes that they know what the right thing is. And all of our tooling is not helping them get any better. And here's how DevSecOps is doing it wrong. We've created dashboards of trash that developers have to go look at, that are completely disjointed, that aren't anywhere in their workflow. And we expect them to go look at the Sneak dashboard, go look at the SonarQube dashboard, go look at no, they're not gonna go do that. And then what, manually create their own Jira tickets? No, they're not looking at them. These tools are reporting everything. Sometimes they're reporting you're using a component that has a vulnerability that is a CVSS 2.9. Okay, is that really important for me to go fix right now? Do I need to be interrupted with that? What do you mean I have 800 new vulnerabilities this week? How many of them are critical? Oh, okay, 45 of them are critical. So I have 45 bugs to patch? Wait a minute, the first 6 I looked at were all in the same library and they all told me to do the same thing. Why did you cut me 45 bugs that have 8 actions associated as a developer? It's a lot of noise for them to sort through. And then you get to the bugs where it's like, you have this bug, and no, I actually don't, because that's just in the wrapper for the package. Or, yes, I use that library, but we're not using the vulnerable component. Like, the actual vulnerability isn't in our application. It's just that a pattern match was found that, yes, I use the component, but I don't use the vulnerable code. So we're drowning them in noise. I think these are all pretty much realities that we experience every day in terms of we're pushing things to developers who don't have the training and don't have the ability to discern, do I need to drop everything and fix this right now? It's just an interruption. It's that buzzing fly around their head of more stuff. And that's part of why they don't go look at those dashboards, because it's a distraction. We heard yesterday, if you were in the GitHub talk yesterday afternoon, that developers, one of their big complaints is interrupts in what they're trying to get done. And the security team is nothing but an interrupt, showing up and trying to pull them out of what they're working on. No dev team I have ever met plans just an open block of time every sprint for security maintenance. We're always interrupting them, and they're always having to make trade-offs on the business plan to fix these security issues. And the security teams are frequently understaffed to meet the needs of the dev teams. So the developers are like, you're giving me all this crap, which one's really important? And the security team is saying, I can get to you in a week and a half. Well, I'm out of SLA by then, so that doesn't work for me. I'm just gonna mark it as by design and close it. Which also happens. And so we're creating this tension, which is not getting the right thing done. And so what's our solution to this? More security engineers. But we already talked about security is not always a technical problem. Sometimes it's documentation. Sometimes it's training. And you know what engineers really love doing? Writing documentation. No, not only do they not love doing it, they're bad at it, and you're paying them way too much. Why would you spend an engine? Anyway, like I said, this talk turns into a rant about all the things we're doing wrong. We keep hiring security engineers and applying them to non-engineering problems. So we're back to where we started, which is I'm going off the grid and I'm going to raise baby goats. Okay, no, let's just try something new. First off, let's admit that security engineers aren't good at everything. Let's just own it and say, you know what? A security engineer who's really, really great at threat modeling might be terrible at incident response. And a security engineer that's really good at vulnerability reproduction is not the person you want interacting with a bug bounty researcher in many cases. Who's going to write the customer documentation? Who's going to do the business analysis of risk trends? Who's going to go train the developers on how to do better coding? At the end of the day, I keep seeing companies hiring more and more security engineers and making them do project management, making them do project work, engaging stakeholders, communicating timelines. And it's like, you could just hire a security program manager and let your engineers do engineering work. That is what you hired them for. And so we need to start accepting that there are sometimes partners who are better at doing things than we are as engineers. This one usually gets a few people in the room uncomfortable, and that's okay. But the way we've implemented security champions in our dev teams is fundamentally flawed. It is bad. It's just like throwing a SAST or a DAST tool at the dev team and saying, congratulations, you've shifted left. We've put these security champions out in the product teams and in the engineering teams with no support, with no structure, with no managed intentional community. And what happens to them? They don't report into the security team. Security is like their side hustle project. It's probably not even on their performance review. They're not gold on it. They report to a leadership team that wants to ship product, that wants to ship a feature, that wants you to sign off on this feature. And what do you mean you don't think we have a secure architecture? We have left them unsupported, and they have no community. And they don't necessarily know the security champions in the other teams across your company. And they're not sharing tools because they're all disconnected. And I cannot tell you the number of times a security champion has said to me, I need to leave my team and go work in a security organization if I actually want to do security, because there is no career path for me here as a security engineer in a product team. And so we need to do more to support our security champions, and that has to come from the security organization. There's a field in security considered community management, working with the security researchers and industry partners outside the company. But we need that internally to our companies to help foster and cultivate that relationship, because security champions could be your diplomatic ambassador to the product team. They should be the person who's working with you so closely that you know that they've got a major milestone coming up, so you don't get surprised a week before release when they show up and are like, hey, we're releasing next week. I'm sorry, what? Have you done any threat modeling? What is your response plan? Like, what is your patching cadence? Have you done any of the security requirements that we've documented? And so they can be a tremendous asset, but only if we nurture that community. Atlassian has a dedicated program manager who their job is to cultivate that internal community and make sure that they are all connected with one another and that they have meaningful conversations and content and training available to them, and that they're getting recognition for doing great security work within the product team. And so it does take that dedicated program manager who that's their job. And we can't just assume that these things are gonna organically happen on their own if we don't make it intentional. I would like everyone in the room to read this slide out loud. I'm not even kidding. Stop rolling your eyes at compliance. Yes, there are bad compliance auditors. Yes, they ask for ridiculous things sometimes. I had a job where my team complained about the POAM report and the compliance requirements to do vuln scanning. And I said, hold on, are you saying that we shouldn't have to do vuln scanning? They're like, no, we should have to do vuln scanning. I'm like, do you understand how bad the state of security is that an organization had to make it a compliance requirement because companies weren't doing it? Compliance is the only way your customers know that you're doing the right things for security. How are they gonna know that you actually do secret scanning? How are they actually going to know that you've got any of the basic things that you should be doing? Compliance is basically consumer reports. So what you'll end up seeing is that security conscious customers are looking for your compliance certifications, not because they care, not because they don't care that you have FedRAMP because they're a federal customer. They care that you have FedRAMP because they know that means you met a certain bar of quality. Now, as I said at the beginning, there are auditors who ask the wrong questions, who are overly pedantic about what the words in the controls say versus, yes, I achieved that by doing this. And so that is challenging, I'm not gonna lie. But if you're working in partnership with your compliance team from the outset, compliance is just the scorecard that your security program is effective. And so building a healthy partnership there and making sure that there's alignment can really change the game from we're doing security because compliance makes us do it to compliance is simply measuring that we're doing the right things. And ultimately, that's what we all want, is to do the right things. And then we get the cookie at the end. Whereas in most organizations, compliance is the stick that you get beaten with to do the thing. You have to do it because compliance. That's one of the reasons, honestly, product teams hate security, is because we show up with sticks all the time and never carrots. It's never, congratulations, you fixed all your bugs, you guys are awesome, we're gonna buy you lunch. It's, you have to fix it because of compliance and you're gonna get a bad scorecard report that goes to your VP. We're always negative and we're always punishment oriented versus rewards and intrinsic value. And compliance is the biggest stick of them all. And so if we need to redefine our relationship there. But we also need to redefine our perspective on security. Security is not actually special. We're just QA. And I had a big argument. The fact that you're clapping is awesome. 10 years ago, I argued with a friend of mine who told me, vulnerabilities, they're just bugs. It's just QA. And I was so adamant that no, it's different. No, it's actually not. He was right. He was absolutely right. And what's interesting is if you stop talking to your development partners about vulnerabilities and start talking about security bugs, it shifts the perspective in their mind. Vulnerabilities are the security team's problem. Bugs, they own. They understand it. And if you redefine your security program within the confines of their existing quality programs, go reach out to your product architects and say, hey, I would love to integrate security in your pre-existing quality mechanisms and not just layer it on top. So we've got security standards or requirements or whatever your company calls them. Why are they separate from quality? Because quality code is reliable, quality code is well-documented, quality code is accessible, quality code is secure. And no developer is like, yeah, I write low-quality code. I mean, they're not excited about that. They want to write high-quality code. And so shift it. Go work with your architect partners and get integrated in what they're already doing versus treating security as some special, unique thing that has to be different all the time. In my last role, we worked with the product architects to integrate threat modeling in their existing design change process. So if you had a major design change or a new design, you had to go through the design doc process, and you had to submit an architecture and a data flow diagram and a, hey, wait, data flow diagram? That is something we need for threat modeling anyway. So we worked with the architects to integrate processes around, hey, we developed a 30-minute threat modeling training specifically for engineers. It's 30 minutes. It's really simple. It's very clear, and it broke it down into 4 really simple questions that we could use every day in our lives. And you do this inherently without any specialized training when you think about what are the risks in my home? And depending on where I live and depending on what's in my home, I might have different risk tolerances than the person 3 seats down from you today, who lives in a different neighborhood with different assets in their home. And so they're looking at different risks and how they address those. Well, we took that real world explanation of threat modeling to the engineers and said, just keep asking yourself questions of what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Okay, well, I mean, this is unlikely, but it could possibly go wrong. And just until you feel like you've exhausted all of the what could possibly go wrongs. And congratulations, you've just done a threat model. And if you do that in your design phase, you're gonna design a higher quality product. And so we put threat modeling not as a security review function, but as a quality design function. And that changed everything for the engineers and their ownership of it. And so I just come back to, we have to change how we view our role in software development, from the security cop at the end of the process preventing you from releasing or coming back and telling you all the things you have to fix, to part of the quality organization. And let's be honest, when companies started doing away with dedicated testers and being like, yeah, the developers will test their code, a lot of them set up bug bounties and called it good. They're like, all right, we've still outsourced the testing because developers aren't always great at testing. This is their baby, and they have blinders onto all the things that could possibly go wrong. And so we've just taken the place of the QA organization in a lot of companies, and they can't stop funding security. See Clorox, MGM, they can't stop doing security like they can shift left all of that test work, but we can redefine how we engage with them to get better outcomes. So when I say know your customers, I don't mean know your development engineers. I mean, who buys your product? Who gives your company money for a thing, for a service, for a piece of software, for what's important to them? Because if you understand what's important to your customers, you will have an easier time talking with your product teams about, hey, I'm not just saying we need to do this security thing because the security team thinks it's important. We understand what customers need and what's important to them. If your customers are saying, hey, logging into your application is really hard. I'm an MSSP, multiple customers of mine use your platform, and it takes me 12 steps to log out of one customer and log into a different customer because of your authentication flow. The security team might automatically be like, security, that's how it is. Like, we have to be, look, there's a way you can design a better authentication flow and still be secure. But you have to understand the real pain points of that customer to see why this is a problem. And so take the time to talk to some of your customers. Talk to the customer support and sales reps to understand what are they hearing from customers. And don't just sit in the security ivory tower and make rules about what can and can't be done without understanding the user experience and what the implications of that are. Because when we design highly secure, poor user experience solutions, users find workarounds. And then all of our security solutions are for naught because they're avoiding them, they're finding ways around them, or they're going to a different product that has a better UX. So at the end of the day, you need to actually understand what your customers need and want so that you can prioritize the right things in security. We also need to stop letting perfect be the enemy of good. I keep seeing security teams do this across the industry, and it's not only damaging that team, but the engineering groups that work with them. So we will come in and ask for the perfect solution, which is like asking the dev team to speedrun Mount Everest. And they can't do it. And your expectations are so wildly unrealistic for them, they don't even try. But if you look at what they're doing as a product, as an engineering solution, as an IT team, and you're like, wow, this is terrible. And we've all had that, where we come in and we see what somebody is doing in their engineering solution, and we're like, oh, okay, where do we start? The reality is you have to be pragmatic, and you have to help them on that journey. You have to get them to base camp 1 and let them equilibrate to the altitude there, and then you rally them to base camp 2. Yes, it is important that you and your leadership team know in your mind, we gotta make the summit. We gotta get there eventually, because where we are now is unacceptable. But we have to do it iteratively, and we have to get there a little bit at a time. I had an employee who was very frustrated because they worked really hard on securing the DevOps pipeline and the CI/CD pipeline at a company. And we got about, I'd say, 60% of the repositories into a better condition with branch control. Because not everything at the company was running through the same GitHub pipeline. Some was GitHub Enterprise, some was GitHub org because it was open source. And we only got branch protection on part of the environment. And they felt that they had failed. And I was like, you realize we had branch protection on nothing before, so we're better now. Like, we have iteratively gotten substantially better than we were 3 months ago. Why are you beating yourself up as a failure? This has been, in my mind, a wild success. And now that we've got it done in one environment and we have it as a case study where we can show this didn't add substantial development time in the process. We did reduce the number of bugs. We did increase quality. Now we have the data to push for it across the entire enterprise. So we have to be willing to accept iterative improvements and make those trade-offs. And one of the things that's really challenging here is security people are used to getting in trouble for everything that goes wrong. Why didn't you catch this? Why didn't you stop this? Why didn't you prevent this? And that, I think, makes us afraid to accept good. We're always looking for perfect because what if we're wrong? What if something goes wrong? And that's where it comes back to, yeah, you want to document the risks and make sure your leadership team knows, like, here's all the things that I think we really need to do. But realistically, this is what we're going to get done this fiscal year. And maybe this first quarter, all we're doing is socializing change. We're not even changing anything yet. We're just socializing that change is coming and listening to our stakeholders and understanding their fears and their pain points so that we can then come back to them and say, all right, we heard you. Here's the adjustments we made to address your needs, and I'm asking you to try this, and we will iterate from there. Because some of these changes are pretty substantial for our businesses in the way they do their work today, and change is hard for people. We need to learn to speak the language of the business. Security is incredibly bad at this. Security teams like to stand on a high and mighty pillar of, we're not sales. We don't sell anything. We're morally neutral. We're the paladins of safety, and so we roll our eyes at revenue conversations, at GTM, at thinking about what features move the needle in which segments. And for a lot of security engineers, just like they don't like compliance, they don't like industry standards. I've never met a security engineer that was like, yeah, we should do a NIST CSF assessment and see where we score in these different categories. Like, that's always like the CISO and the board that wants that. But if as a security engineer, you don't start learning the language of the business and learning what motivates the board and the C-suite to unlock resources for you, you can't compel them and convince them and make the great argument of, hey, I know we were really concerned about our respond rating in that last assessment, and I've been thinking about it, and I think if we do this, basically leverage your inner clickbait. If we do this one crazy thing, we can shift our score probably by 4 or 5 points, tenths of a point there, and that would get us closer to industry benchmarks. Or thinking about, yes, I know this, expanding this tool will cost us $1 million a year to that tool provider. And here's all the cost savings to the business in terms of engineering hours, risk reduction. We're gonna have better visibility to protect our customer data. And so if you start learning how to communicate with these senior leaders, you will get more of the resources you need to do the work you need to do to protect customers. Fundamentally, our job is to enable customer trust. Yes, we secure an application. Yes, we secure an enterprise. But why do we do that? We do that so that customers can trust our company with their data. And if they can't trust your company with their data, they're not going to give you their money. And then you don't have a job. So your job isn't just secure the application. Securing the application is what you do on the journey to customer trust. And so thinking about it from a perspective of, is this building platform integrity? And this comes back to why I'm saying, get to know your customers, understand their perspective, advocate for them, and think about what are the things we need to do to create that trustworthy platform that will unlock revenue, that will pass vendor security reviews when a customer is considering using our solution or doing business with us. They'll have questions. Let's make it easy for them to get those answers and feel good about it. So let's go make things better is my last slide, and I did definitely miss a slide, and this is incredibly awkward for a keynote, but I want to go back to it because it's important. So something I meant to mention here, when I said that security engineers aren't good at everything, and I ranted about how, why are we having them write documentation, I keep seeing organizations not hire security program managers, or not hire technical writers, or not hire community managers to manage their bug bounty and their internal champions program. And the Fellowship of the Rings wasn't 9 elves. It wasn't 9 hobbits. It wasn't 9 humans, and it wasn't 9 dwarves. You need diversity of thought, diversity of experience, and diversity of skill on your teams. And you need to actually build teams, not I have this technical engineering rock star. We give them a problem, they go solve it. What happens when that technical engineering rock star gets sick or leaves the company and you haven't built a healthy, strong team of people who help each other, cover for each other, address each other's gaps and strengths and weaknesses? And so as an individual engineer or security program manager or security community manager, you don't have a lot of control over this. But if you are responsible for managing a team, for influencing a business's hiring decisions, think about diversifying your team portfolio. I generally would suggest 1 program manager for each 8 engineers, because that can really, really help in driving business solutions forward and driving the projects they're doing forward. What typically happens is the engineering manager ends up working as a program manager, aligning all the stakeholders, coordinating all their engineers. But I would encourage you to diversify your team a bit and not just hire multiple cookie cutters of the same thing, and then be surprised when your documentation is not well done, is late, is out of date. You want that person whose passion is making sure the wiki is up to date and all the developers across the company know where to get training, and they're doing the assessment each year of this training has gotten out of date and we need to update it. Hey, I was looking at the bug data. That team keeps having a root cause of buffer overflow, and here's the training I think we need to invite them to. And so there's a lot of things that engineers aren't good at that we need to diversify and do more on. Okay, clearly I had more to rant on that. Okay, so now, let's go make things better. Let's go diversify our teams. Let's change the way we think about security. Let's start actually focusing on quality and customer trust versus just this cool new bug. And think about, how do we help our engineers make the right decision about links to click? How do we help our customers make the right decision about data that they should be sending to our platform? And thinking about it from the user perspective. SDL programs, Secure Development Lifecycle programs, DevSecOps, whatever you want to call them, they've historically all been about tool and process. Here's the tool and follow this process. And there's so little focus on the user experience. In 2022, there's a conference in Hawaii called LocoMocoSec, and it's all focused on AppSec, and specifically AppSec defense. And Dino Daizovi gave one of the keynotes there, and he said, SDL is dead, long live secure developer experience. And the secure developer experience is thinking about, how do we make the UX better? And how do we create these paved paths for our engineering partners, for our employees, for our customers, where doing the secure thing is easy. It's not even hard. It doesn't create friction. And if your dev team really, really, really wants to roll their own crypto, like, okay, sure, the security team can come in and help them understand why that's a terrible decision, but they can come in and help. But why would they do that when they've got a really easy solution right there in front of them? You're creating this paved path. Why would you go off-roading? I mean, okay, we can help you go off-roading if it's really important to you, but it's going to be faster to just stay on the highway of secure development. And so, again, everything that I'm talking about here is about, how do we make that easier for the dev team and stop being friction and thorns in their side and creating problems that they don't want to work with us. Every one of us has probably walked into a meeting with an engineering team, and you can see the defenses go up. They expect you to be a problem. They expect you to be argumentative. And if you come from a culture where you're all about collaboration, where you're like, hey, I want to know about what you're working on, and how can I help? And all right, have we thought about this? Or I can't tell you the number of times where I've had a team who's like, we're not going to make SLA, and I'm going to need an extension. I'm like, okay, let's talk about what's your remediation plan. Let's have the conversation. I'm not going to flip out about it. Let's talk about trade-offs. When do you think you could have it fixed? Is there a mitigation that would be easy to implement in the short term? And it will take a while for them to realize, oh, you're not one of those security people who's always coming in and making unrealistic demands, and you're here to partner with me. You want to actually consider how this affects my workflow. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There will still be those dev teams that try to take advantage of you and be like, yeah, we'll fix this in 9 months. And it's like, no, that one you can't fix in 9 months. Because we've had an engineer who wasn't busy bug nannying, Like, how many security engineers spend time chasing down product teams to be like, no, you have to fix this. No, you really have to fix this. I swear you have to fix this. Here, let me show you the repo. That's not a good use of their time. And so if you can build a healthier mechanism for cleaning up that security debt by reframing the culture around quality, now your security engineers can come through and be like, all right, hey, I really appreciate that you cleared up most of your security debt. You're down to the last 3 bugs that we filed, and you're asking for a business risk exception. We took an in-depth look at them. We had our vulnerability researcher look at them, and 2 of them, actually, sure, no problem, we'll sign off on the business risk. They're really unlikely to get exploited. The 3rd one, it's actually pretty trivial to exploit, but we discovered you don't have to update the entire library and change your architecture. This code snippet right here, this like 1 line of code, if you go in and change that, you've addressed the vulnerability, and I can show you how. And that changes your entire relationship with the dev team, where you're enabling them, and you're not just saying, you have a bug, go fix it. So I know we can do this better. I know we can reframe how security engages with development. It'll take time, and but we've got to do it, or else we're going to keep getting the same results we've been getting, and it's not going to change. So, or we could just go raise baby goats. I mean, that's cool too. Thanks.